Yalaf on the base with the Mishnah. Starts the bottom. How do you make a mavai fit to be able to be used? What do you have to do to an alleyway to be able to use the alleyway? Shami says you put up a post, and you use a crossbeam. Bisol says either one, either a post or a crossbeam. Should have been the first Mishnah. A lot of Mishnah should have been the first Mishnah. First Mishnah started off with Mavishi Gvoil Ma'ala Mesr Mama. This should have been first. What do you need at the entrance? A kaira. The second Mishnah could have been kaira Shila Ma'ala Mesr Mama. That would have been more organized in our way. We organize things nowadays. Okay. Rabbi Lezer Melachiyayim. Lezer says 2 lechis. What does Rabbi Lezer hold regarding a kaira? See in the Gemara. So 3 opinions here. Either lechi and kaira, lechi or kaira, or 2 lechis. Mishum Rabbi Shmuel Amar Talmidecha Lefnei Rabbi Akiva. In the name of Rabbi Shmuel, one student said in front of Rabbi Akiva, if the mavi itself is under 4 amos, now we say the mavi, we're referring here to the entrance of the mavi. If the entrance of the mavi is narrow and it's less than 4 amos, the actual doorway to the mavi, the way to get in, is less than 4 amos, and everyone holds it just needs a lechi or a kaira. So what's the machlekes b'shami and b'sila? Al rachav mi'arba amos v'adesa. In between 4 and 10. You know that after 10 you have other issues. Like in the first Mishnah, if it's wider than 10 amos, then you have to diminish this. You have to make it more narrow. So in between 4 and 10. That's where the machlekes is. Okay, so he limits the machlekes to in between 4 and 10 amos wide entranceways. And Rabbi Akiva says no. They argued about both. Under 4 and more than 4. Up until 10. Now, the beginning of the Mishnah said, Hechsher Mavi. How do you make a Mavi fit to be used? Now, the Gemara understands that we're talking about the Mavi Mefulish. That means that it's open on both ends. And it's just a street, but it's an alleyway that takes you from one Rosh Hashanah to another Rosh Hashanah, but it's open on both ends. The Gemara says, come on. Who does it go like that you can fix a mavi that's open on both ends with just a lechi? Or even a lechi and a kaira? Who holds that? The like Chananya, that doesn't fit with Chananya. Chananya we had before, he says you have to put doorways. You have to put doors. You have to put doors on a mavi mefulish. Like a Tanakama that says that you need to put doorways. It's Suras HaPesach. Doesn't fit with anyone. Rabbi Yehuda Achikamar. Rabbi Yehuda says, Rabbi Yehuda is a student of Rav, student of Shmuel. We'll have him several times today. He explains the Mishnah. He says, Hechsher mavi sasum keitzad. How do you make a mavi that's closed on one end? It's only open on one end. It's closed on 3 sides. How do you make that fit? So that b'shami amrim lechi v'kar b'sulam or lechi v'kar. B'shami says that you need both a lechi and a kaira. And Bisil says either or, a lechi or a kaira. Okay, but we're talking about that it's really closed on 3 sides. That was easy. The Gemara makes a suggestion now. B'shami amrim lechi v'kar. B'shami says that you need lechi and kaira. L'meimra the kasavri b'shami arba mechitzas deraisa. What does that mean? Why does Beis Shammai hold that you need a lechi and a kaira? It's closed on 3 sides. Does Beis Shammai require an actual wall? And this satisfies the criteria of a wall. And what makes something a Rosh Hashanah Yachid? Only when it's closed off by 4 walls. And that's why they're more strict about this. Umar says, lie. That's not the case. Lizrek mishalash mechayev. If someone, this is the way of explaining that when it's considered an actual Rishus HaYachid Deraisa, the Gemara's term for that is Lizrek. That means if someone from outside the street throws into it, would he be chayev? That's the criteria. That's the way of defining. Is it really Rishus HaYachid and everything else is just rabbinic? So it says, really, the truth is, even without the lechi or the kaira, if someone was outside in the street and he threw something into this mavi that doesn't have a lechi or a kaira, he would already be chayiv, because that's considered a rishus hayachid. What's the lechi and the kaira for? That's just a rabbinic law to be able to carry inside. L'tal taladik arba, but to carry inside, you need the fourth. Well, notice we tried to prove that it must be that Beis Shammai holds that it's a Rishus HaRabim. Until you have the fourth wall, we said, nah, it could be it's really Rishus HaYachid. And the fourth wall is just a rabbinic law to be able to carry in the Mavi itself. What's the opinion of Beis Hillel? That you don't need both. You just need a crossbeam or a post. It must be that Lema Kasavri Beis Hillel Shalosh Mechitzos D'Oraisa. Really, you don't need a fourth wall. It's already your Rishus HaYachid from three walls. The fourth wall, that lachia, the kaira, is just a rabbinic law to be able to carry inside. You shouldn't make mistakes, but really it's a Rishus HaYachid from three. Mar says, lie. Even that you don't have a proof for. Lizrik mishtayim hu de mechayev. It could be that you're already chayev. It's considered a Rishus HaYachid midairaisa, just having two walls, according to Beis Hillel. But l'talta aladik shalish. But when you're talking about carrying inside, then you need three walls. What do you need the lechi and the kaira for? That's not even to carry inside. That's just a heker. But that's just an extra heker. So what comes out over here is that according to Beis Hillel, you really only need two walls midiraisa to make a Rishus HaYachid. We had this opinion before. It's the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda that we're going to have later today again. Rabbi Yehuda in the Mishnah, Rabbi Yehuda Rabbi Lai. He held that if a person has two houses on either side of Rishus HaRabim, it's really considered the area in between. If he has two houses on either side and he has a bridge across, or a lechi and a kaira on either side, it's really considered a Rishus HaYachid. But the Chachamim didn't agree with him. So we wouldn't be saying that the Beis Hillel is following that minority opinion. So the Mefarshim explained that this is just called the D'chuya. This is just the Gemara saying, you're trying to make a suggestion, but let me tell you, it's not perfect. We could knock it off and say that it's not accurate. But the Gemara isn't really suggesting that this is the final answer. It's just saying, pushing off, but it doesn't really mean to say that Beis Hillel actually holds this. Okay. Rabbi Lezer Melachayin. Rabbi Lezer holds, Rabbi Lezer is Rabbi Lezer ben Horkenes. Rabbi Lezer ben Horkenes was the one that was known as a student of Beis Shammai. See, Rabbi Lezer ben Horkenes' teacher was Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai. He was one of the 5 students. Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai kibel mihil v'shamai. Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai learned from both. Rabbi Lezer says that you need to have 2 lachis. Yibaylo. The yeshiva has a question. Rabbi Lezer l'chiyayin v'kaira kamar. Idam l'chayin b'loi kaira. What does he hold? L'chayin b'loi kaira kamar. Does he hold that you need a kaira as well, and he just didn't mention it because that was obvious? Shammai says lechi v'kaira. Rabbi Lezer says l'chiyayin. 2 lechis. Is it a continuation or is it his own opinion? Tashemach, come and listen. Meister Rabbi Lezer shalachitz or Rabbi Yosef ben Preda Talmidai Lo'ovlin. Story: Rabbi Lezer went to visit his student, Rabbi Yosef ben Preda, the student in a place called Uvlin. Umatzari, he found him. We're on top of Yud Beis, we're on top of 12. Sheyoshev b'mavi shein le'ela lechi echad. He was sitting in an alleyway that only had one lechi. Is it on Shabbos? Amalai b'ni, aseh lechi acher. Must have been Friday. He says, make another lechi. My son, make another lechi. Amalai v'chila sois mani tzarach. You need me to close it off? So Amalai yistem ma'bekach. Close it off. What's the difference? Don't make a big deal about it. So we're going to discuss this conversation in a minute. We're looking for proof of what Rebbe Lezer holds about the Kaira. So Amar Rab Shimon ben Gamliel, the Brisa continues, and we'll get to the second part of the Brisa after we discuss the first part. But we'll just finish the Brisa, then we'll go back. Rab Shimon ben Gamliel says, Bishami and Misal don't argue on a mavi that's less than 4 cubits. The entranceway is less than 4 cubits. Now we had that in the Mishnah, but we had a student of Rabbi Shmuel that said this in the name of Rabbi Shmuel to Rabbi Akiva, and Rabbi Akiva argued. Now we have Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel saying this, and the only thing is that he adds in these words, which is going to confuse us a little bit. If it's less than 4 amas, she'ein tzarich l'klum, that you don't need anything. That we did not say in the Mishnah. In the Mishnah, we said that they don't argue that you just need a lechi or a kaira because it's so narrow, it's less than 4 cubits. You don't need a lechi and a kaira. Everyone agrees like they say lechi or a kaira. Here he says, shein tzarich l'klum. Huge chiddush. Alman nechlekul. So what is the machlekes? This is the same like we heard in the name of Rabbi Shmuel. Al rachav mi arba amis vadeser. It's in between 4 and 10. Okay. Lechi and a kaira, a post and a crossbeam, or just one or the other. Ketani miyas. Nevertheless, we learned. The student by the name of Rabbi Yossi ben Preda tells Rabbi Eliezer, you need me to close it off. You want me to close off the whole side? If you say he wants 2 lechis and a kaira, that's why he's saying, you're asking me to close off the wall. What does he mean? Close it off. He's just telling you, put up another post. That's not closing it. 2 lechis and a kaira is like a tzuras Pesach. That's like a whole doorway. It's like a real wall. He's just telling him 2 posts. Put up another post. You already had one. And first, we'll discuss who he was trying to satisfy, the student. Was he following Beis Hillel or was he following Beis Shammai? Comes along Rabbi Eliezer and tells him his shita. If he would have been following Beis Hillel, so then he would have responded to Rabbi Eliezer, I follow Beis Hillel. Must be he's following Beis Shammai. So he probably had a kaira. It says lechi v'kaira. So eliyamet lechem b'leikar ma'los eismei. What does he mean to close it off? And there's another logic there of what he's doing. That he probably had the kaira. So zachi kamar. This is what he meant to say. Do you want me to close it off with lechis? It's an expression to mean you want me to add another lechi. But really, there was no kaira there. Really, there was no kaira. Yes, how does that fit with Beis Shammai? I don't know. But we don't have a proof. We tried to bring a proof of what Rabbi Eliezer holds about the kaira from this brisa. We really don't have a proof. Because we thought the expression Bechilas Eismani Tzarech would prove that there's a kaira. We said it doesn't actually prove that. Okay, so we're left with still 3 opinions. Beis Hillel lechi or a kaira, Beis Shammai lechi and the kaira, and Rabbi Eliezer 2 lechis. Amar Mar. Let's go back to discuss Reb Shimon ben Gamliel in the second part of the brisa. Amar Mar, the master taught a Tanaic source. It's Amar Mar. Amar Reb Shimon ben Gamliel nechleku Beis Shammai Beis Hillel mavish pachas me'arba amas she'ein tzarich l'klum. Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel don't argue that you do not need anything. You need nothing to do to fix it. the entranceway is less than 4 cubits, so it's already considered closed. 1 second. But in our Mishnah it didn't say that. A student said, in the name of Rabbi Yishmael, a student said in front of Rabbi Akiva, you need one or the other. It's not that you don't need anything. You just don't need both. What does he mean? Amar Rav Ashi, we jump to the end of the Talmudic period. We say, Rav Ashi says, Achi Kamar, you don't need anything extra. You don't need the opinion of Beis Shammai that says lachi and a You don't need the opinion of Rebbe Lezer that says 2 lachis. Just the bare minimal, which is a lachi. But he was never going off the bare minimal, which is a lachi or a kaira, one or the other. That's the way of explaining it. Okay, Vakama. Where now asks, how small is the entranceway? It still requires a tikkun. We just said that it always needs some sort of either a lechi or a kaira, even if it's under 4. That's what we just established. Now, how narrow is the doorway that still requires that, the entranceway? Amar Rav Achli v'temer Rabbi Yechiel. I haven't seen Rabbi Yechiel in the Gemara before. Says ad arba till 4 tvachim. So we're talking about 4 amas, 3 amas, 2 amas, 1 amma, 4 tvachim. That's still, all of those require a lechi or a kaira. We're working our way down. Ad kama, how narrow does it be that it still requires some sort of fixing until 4 tvachim? Ad arba. Arba is a lashon zacha. So tvachim fits with arba. That would be arba amas and arba'a tvachim. That's how it works. Amar Rav Sheshes. Amar Rav Yirmiyah Barabba. Amar Rav Sheshes says the name of Rav Yirmiyah Barabba and the name of Rav. Rav Sheshes was a 2nd generation off from Rav. Rav Sheshes would say Kadnayim v'shachim Rav. Rav must have been sleeping when he said this. He would comment on Rav's teachings. Anyway, now he's quoting Rav. Moedim chachamim l'Rebbe Lezer pasi chatzer. Sages agree to Rebbe Lezer when it comes to a courtyard. What we're doing right here in this Gemara is that we're making a distinction between a mavoi, which is an alleyway, and the chatzer, which is the courtyard. Yeah, what is a city going to be? That's going to be what we have to figure out. What's happening now is that the mavoi is an alleyway. It's a cul-de-sac, a dead end. It's closed on 3 sides, but there is doorways of courtyards that open up into it. Now, those courtyards have houses in it. To close off a mavoi, you only need a lechi or a kaira, according to Beis Hillel, which is the opinion of the sages. A lechi or a kaira. To close off a chatzar that's opened, you have to, if one side of a chatzar is open, you have to have 2 lechis. So it's pasi chatzar. Pas means a board. Tosfos on the top Tosfos pasi chatzar. He says, "V'kasha the gabi mavi nakal lashon lechi, v'gabi chatzar nakal lashon pas, kulish maita afagav d'shnei masher." He says, don't get confused. The fact that it calls it by a chatzar calls it a pas. By a lechi, it calls it a post. By a mavi, it calls it a post, a lechi. It's really the same thing. They really have the same size. Everything is a mashu. Whatever the term is, this has a question, why does it switch the term? Both of them are a mashu. A mashu means as thin as it could be. It doesn't mean it needs to be a piece of plywood. It could be a board, a stick that's, 1 by 1, or a half by 1. I don't know how thin they sell the things. Could be very small. PVC pipe. That's what they use when they tie it. Okay. Sages agreed to Rebbe Lezer by a chatzar that you need two posts. Reb Nachman Amar Halachik Rebbe Lezer Pasi Chatzar. Reb Nachman says it different. Nachman doesn't say that the sages agree. Nachman says that the halacha is like Rabbi Eliezer. What does that mean? The halacha is like Rabbi Eliezer. That means that they argue. We just don't go like that. That's what it means. Okay, let's see. Amar Reb Nachman Bar Yitzchak. Reb Nachman Bar Yitzchak is later than Reb Nachman. He may be a student of Reb Nachman. Reb Nachman's name was actually Reb Nachman Bar Yaakov. It's a discussion in Sach Gittin. But that's the assumed approach. That Reb Nachman is Reb Nachman Bar Yaakov. Reb Nachman Bar Yitzchak is later. He discusses. When he says, Reb Nachman Bar Yitzchak says, Man Moidim, when you said it earlier, when Rav Shesha said, Moidim Chachamim Rebbe Lezer, who's the one that's Moidim? He said, Rebbe. It's the full answer. It's the opinion of Rebbe. We'll see in a moment. Halacha Mechlal de Pligi, when Reb Nachman says that the halacha, that's obviously that they're arguing. Man Palagala, who's the one that's arguing? That's Rabbanan. That's the Rabbanan. So we just introduced here a Machlekes Rebbe and the Rabbanan, and as it continues, the Tanya was taught in the Brisa. The first opinion in the Brisa would be the Tanakama, the Rabbanan. Chotzer niteres bepas echad. A courtyard only needs one post. Calls it a pas. It's easy, post. The pas literally means a board, but we're considering it a post. One side piece of wood or anything, a post. Rebbe Mishnei Pas, Rebbe says it needs two posts. Okay, so now we see that Rebbe agrees to Rabbi Eliezer. That's the Moedim, and the Tanakam, the Rabbanan, they argue on Rabbi Eliezer by a chatzar. We didn't see what's the din by a chatzar. Now we quoted from a brisa, and comes along Rav Nachman and says that we don't go like the Rabbanan, we go like Rabbi Eliezer or Rebbe. Amar Rabasi, Amar Rabbi Yechanan, chatzar tzricha shnei pasim. Okay, good. Chatzar tzricha shnei pasim. That's the same thing that we just had from Reb Sheshes in the name of Rab. Amar le Reb Zeir le Rabasi. Miyam Reb Yechanan Hachi. Does Reb Yechanan really say that? That a chatzar needs two posts? Va'atu da'amrit mishmeid Reb Yechanan. But you were the one that said in the name of Rabbi Yechanan, Pasi Chatzar Tzrichim Shebehem Daled. You said that the posts of a chatzar need to have 4 tfachim. Now you're telling me that you need 2 posts. Maybe you want to answer me that you need 4 tfachim on either side. Yeah, 2 posts, and each one needs to be 4. But Tani Ravada Baravimi Kameda Rab Chanina Varmila Kameda Rab Chanina Bar Papi. But we had a brisa that was quoted before. We spent several days on this discussion, I think. That this quote before. Katana Be'asr G'dei L'Bachas Esrei. And there's a small courtyard that opens up into a larger courtyard. We said that the larger courtyard could be used, but the smaller courtyard can't be. We said that it opened up directly in. Why was the larger courtyard usable? Because it was considered that that wall was closed off because the entranceway of the smaller courtyard was narrower than the larger courtyard. And came along this Ravada Baravimi in the name of Rav Chanina, in the name of Rav Chanina Bar Papi, and said, how much smaller is it? It's 1 amma smaller. How much is an amma? 6 tfachim. And we explained either it's 4 on one side or 2 on the other side. We had a whole way of dealing with this. But either way, you don't have 8 tfachim, which is the suggestion of what he's saying there. Rabbi Yechanan says you need 2 posts. Rabbi Yechanan says a post needs to be 4 tfachim. If the way of resolving that is that you need 2 posts of 4 tfachim each, then you would need 8 tfachim. Wouldn't be an amma, it would be an amma and a half, an amma and a third. The Anam and the third. Here you say that the smaller courtyard is 10 amas, the larger courtyard is 11. It means that the posts on both sides of the smaller courtyard is only 3 tfachim each. Kasha. Kisalik Reb Zera, look at this. This is a very exciting word for us. Kisalik Reb Zera, Miami. It's a discussion if it means that he came from the sea or if he came from a place called Miami. Yeah, I thought Miami was some Indian tribe or something. I didn't think it came from... had anything to do with oceans, even though it's surrounded by water. But it's interesting. When Reb Zera came from this, either from the sea or from this place, the Ritva says it's a place. Pirsha, he explained what's going on. Ruach Achas Barba says you actually have two options, and that's why we had this confusion. Rabbi Yochanan said you need 4 tvachim to close off a chatzah, which is different than a mavi. A mavi only requires a lechi or a kaira, but a chatzar is more strict. Why is a chatzar more strict? A chatzar is usually used for more private usage. So to close off a chatzar, we want it to be more private, and you need more partition. That's how it's explained. So you have two options. Either you use a board of 4 tvachim to close off the doorway. It has to be recognizable that you're trying to make the doorway more narrower because you're trying to make an eruv there. Or mishtei ruches mashal lakan, or you can use a lechi on either side. That's what's required for a chatzar, for a courtyard. You have those two options. Still didn't resolve the Mishnah or the Brisa that says that a small courtyard and a larger courtyard, you need 3 tvachim on each side. Where does that come from? V'hadetani, and this that it was taught from, what's the Aleph? V'hadetani Ravada bar Avimi. Ravada bar, that's the Rabbin. That it was taught that you need 3 tvachim on either side, that's Rebbe. That's the opinion of Rebbe, V'savalak Rabbi Yossi, and he holds like Rabbi Yossi that says every board always needs to be 3 tvachim. Rabbi Yochanan is following the Rabbanan that say, the Rabbanan say that really a courtyard only needs 1 board. But what type of board? Rabbi Yochanan says, 4 tvachim board. If you're not going to use a 4 tvachim board, then you can have 2 posts of a mashu. Mashu means a small size that doesn't even have any measurement, as thin as could be. We said before, it has to be able to hold a door or whatever, but a small post doesn't need to be wide. And Rebbe, he holds that you need 2 posts always, and he also follows the opinion of Rabbi Yossi that holds that a post needs to be 3 tvachim. A post needs to be 3 tvachim. That explains the brisa that qualifies the Mishnah that says a smaller courtyard opens into a larger courtyard. The larger courtyard you can use because it's considered closed off, because it's one amma larger than the smaller one because you had 3 tvachim on either side. We fit everything into place. This is like a jigsaw puzzle. Everything has its position, and everything matches up. Amar Rav Yosef, Amar Rav Yehuda, Amar Shmuel. Rav Yosef says in the name of Rav Yehuda, in the name of Shmuel. Before we had a statement in the name of Rav. Rav Sheshis in the name of Rav Yirmiyah Barabba in the name of Rav. What does it say here? Chatzin niteres b'pas echad. In the name of Rav, we said that the sages agreed to Rabbi Eliezer by a chatzir that you need 2 pasim, you need 2 posts. In the name of Shmuel, we say, Rav Yehuda, Rabbi Yosef, name Rabbi Yehuda, name of Shmuel, that you only need 1 post for a chatzir. We have Mishnayos that discuss the mavi. Now we're discussing what's the din by the chatzir. Amalei Abayla Rabbi Yosef. Abayla says to Rabbi Yosef, 1 post. Miyamar Shmuel Hachi. Shmuel holds you only need 1 post for a chatzir. Va'amalei Shmuel Rav Chananya bar Shila. Shmuel told Rav Chananya bar Shila, Atlei Savaruvta Ela Oiber Roiv Doifen Oiber Shnei Pasim. Told him clearly that either you have Roiv Doifen. Roiv Doifen means the majority of that wall should be closed off. The term that we were using for that is Oimid Meruba Ala Paratz. There's more solid wall than opening. or you have two posts. So what's going on? You're telling me Shmuel holds you only need one post. Shmuel gave you two options and neither of them are one post. Either it's mostly walled in on that side, or you have two posts. Amalei Vanola Yadana. Yosef says, you know what? I don't know the answer to that. That's a problem. However, he goes on. He says, "Deuvda have a bedura derusa." It was a story with a city, a village of shepherds. That what happened? Loshen yam hanichnas l'chatzer haba. The tongue of the sea entered into the courtyard. That's literally, let's see a picture. Yeah, that's the courtyard. That little area there is the courtyard. And the sea, this is like Venice. The sea is going down and it opens into the water's coming into the courtyard. If it's fresh water, that would be very convenient. If it's seawater, it's just a mix. So, okay. V'asal kami de Rav Yehuda. Came to Rav Yehuda. And apparently they want to use this water. Rav Yehuda said, you only need one post to be able to use this water. Notice the water is coming up. You can take water from there. Even though the sea is a Carmelis, it's not considered a Rishus Harabim because it's too large. No, not because it's too large. It's not considered a Rishus HaYachid because it's too large. Considered a Carmelis. And the courtyard is surrounded on three sides. The problem is, what do you do with the fourth side? So in order to use this courtyard, you have to have the fourth side closed off in some way. What do you do? So he said, you just put one post there and then you can use the courtyard, which means you can take the water. So, you see, this is what Rav Yehuda holds. Rav Yehuda was a student of Shmuel, he was a student of Rav also. But I guess that's what Rav Yosef is saying in the name of Rav Yehuda. It's Rav Yehuda in the name of Shmuel. Amar Lei, Abaya says to Rav Yosef, Lashon Yam Kamrit, you're telling me about the tongue of a sea, telling me about water. There are leniencies. The sages made leniencies with regards to getting water. We saw these things before. Rav Tavla asked Rav, Mechitza tluya, a hanging mechitza. There's a problem with the mechitza tluya. You see, what's happening is that we have halachic walls. Means that something is closed off in a certain way, but it's not fully closed off. So halacha tells us that you can imagine that the wall is continuing down, or you can imagine the wall is continuing up. There's a problem with walls continuing down. The problem is that people could go under there, or animals could go under, and then what are you telling me it's a wall? It's not a wall. Everyone, if you tell me no one uses it, so you tell me it's a wall, okay. So the sages consider it like a wall, and it's blocked off. No one goes through it anyway, so it's considered blocked off because the bottom is blocked off. It's considered like it goes up. But to hang a wall and it's going down, but you could go under it. That's easy. So there's issues with mechitza tluya. However, when it came to water, which would be more common to have if you would have it would be difficult to get the mechitza in the water. So a lot of times the mechitza would go above the water. It would divide. If it's a small stream, you can put it above. So if you had a mechitza, what happened is the water is coming into a broken down building or house. It doesn't have to be a broken down house. It would be more common that the water came up to the wall and it was broken down. So how can you get the water in there? Amalei, he says, can I use a mechitza tluya? This Rav Tablas Rav, a hanging mechitza tluya means hanging. Says Amalei, ein mechitza tluya materes ela b'mayim. It would only work if there's water there. It was asking about the churba. He says it works only if there's water. Why? Because there's leniency when it comes to getting water, that we allow certain partitions that we wouldn't allow in other cases. Now, what's happening here is that Rav Yosef was trying to bring a raya that from a story that happened in the city of shepherds, where the water was coming in, and Rabbi Yehuda said you can use one post. See, one post in a chutzner is good. The Baya says it's no proof from one post in a. Over there was water, and over there you would even allow a machitza tluya. But if we go back to our problem, we still have a problem. Mikol makom kasha. What's the story? What's going on with Shmuel? On one hand, you told me that Shmuel holds that you only need one post in a courtyard. And on the other hand, I have a story with Shmuel tells Rabbi Chanani bar Shila that you need either a pass, either you need roiv doifen, majority of a wall, it's more solid, or you have two lechis. Shnei pasim. It's a contradiction. Kiyasa Rav Papa, Rav Huna Breder Rav Yeshua Mibei Rav, when Rav Papa and Rav Huna Breder Rav Yeshua, these are later Amiraim, they came from Yeshiva of Rav. They Rav doesn't mean that there was, they actually studied by Rav. It came from his yeshiva. Rav wasn't there anymore. Pirsha, they explained it. Unbelievable. This whole discussion takes us back to where we started. Rav held that you need to have two lechis. Rabbi Yochanan said that you have an option of two lechis or a pas daled. We have a contradiction in Shmuel. Either you need two lechis or you need most of a wall. Says no. What it means is you have an option of either 4 tvachim on one side, or you have two lechis. It sounds like Rabbi Yochanan. Same thing. Amar Rav Papa then adds, he says, Ikashli hakashli. If I would ask anything about this explanation, the following would be my question. Why did he tell him that you have two options? Either you have majority solid structure of the wall, or you have two lechis. Why do you have to tell him majority of the wall? Could have said you only need 4 tvachim of a wall. That's what we just said. Rav Papa and Rav Huna Breder Rav Yeshua said that you have those two options, either a pas arba or you have two lechis. We're talking about closing off a chutzner, the 4th wall of a chutzner. The pas arba sagi, it would be enough with a partition of 4 tvachim. Where gives a possible solution. What did it mean when it said the majority of a wall? It meant 4 tvachim. Why? Because the wall was 7 tvachim. It means the opening. The opening to this chutzner was 7 tvachim. So he said either you put up the majority of the wall, which is 4 tvachim, or you put up 2 posts. That's the way it resolves. That what does he mean? What majority of a wall? He only needs 4 tvachim. It says, yeah, that was in that case, that was the majority of the wall. It says, Lamali arba. Why do you need 4? You only need 3 in a drop. You have a majority of 7 tvachim. It's not really a drop. It's less than 4. A little over half. That's what it would require. Why are you telling me you need 4? 3 in a fraction. Because we had the statement before from Rav Achli in the name of Rabbi Chiel that under 4 tfachim, you don't really even need a wall. You don't even need to do anything. What we're saying here, so this is the explanation why it's only shleisha mashu. It's not because you need half. What he's saying is, you really only need 3 in a drop. This is how it comes out. You really only need 3 in a drop. It's not 3 in a fraction over half. What it means is really 3 in a drop. Why? Because we asked the question before that if the entranceway is 4 amas or under 4 amas, then everyone agrees in a mavi that you only need either a lechi or a kaira. Some machlekes b'sil b'shamay. If the entranceway is under 4 amas, then the Gemara asked, what if until how small do you still need a lechi or a kaira? We said it's not 3 amas, not 2 amas. You still need all the way down until 4 tvachim. But under 4 tvachim, then you don't need any fixing to that entranceway. It's not even considered an entranceway that needs to be marked off. It's too small. So if I have an entranceway that's 7 tvachim, and I put up a board of 3 tvachim plus a drop, my entranceway is not 4 tvachim anymore. So you don't need a lechi. So why is he saying you need the majority of the wall? Or you need 4 tvachim? You don't need either of them. You just need to get rid of a 4 tvachim entranceway, which that you can do with 3 in a drop. We'll get rid of, if the entranceway is 7 tvachim, 3 in a drop, we'll take it away. So the Gemara says, Iba Yasema kan b'chatzer kan b'mavi. That story that you told me, the dalet tvachim is considered an entranceway, but less than that, you don't need anything. That's in a mavi. But in a chatzer, maybe you still need something. It's one teretz. That there's a machlekes regarding Rav Achli. That an entranceway is 4 tvachim, but not less than that. That's going to be a discussion on Daf Yomi Shabbos and stuff. Okay, la'alacha we actually have this. It's actually brought down la'alacha that there is a difference between a chatzar and a mavi, and in a chatzar, you still need to fix it, even if the entranceway is less than 4 tvachim, but not if it's less than 3 tvachim. It's just that one tefach. Well, of course, more than 4 tvachim, you have to fix it. But even less than 4 tvachim. Shin samach gimel sif beis. That's what this discussion is. In our Chaim, 363. Okay. Tanu Rabbanan. The rabbi started in a brisa. Lashain yam anichnas lechatzer in memala mena b'Shabbos elam ken yesh le mechitza gvaya yud tvachim. If the sea entered into the courtyard, you can't use that water Gemara's going to ask right away, what do you mean the water? What about everything else? We'll see. You can't use that water unless there is a remaining wall underneath where the water is coming in, unless there's a remaining wall of 10 tvachim there. There's the sea knocked down the upper part of the wall, but underneath there still is a wall of 10 tvachim. That would satisfy the requirements. When do we say that this is an issue? Shepherds say the Yaiser may, it's supposed to be Eser. It says Asara. It's supposed to be Eser. Eser Ames. If the opening is more than 10 Ames, Aval Eser, but if it's directly 10 or under 10, Ein Tzarech Klum, then you don't need anything. Because there's an assumption here that you have the sides of the wall, what they call gefufe, are still there. So that's considered that this wall is closed off. Gemara asks, You can't take the water. But you're allowed to carry in the courtyard. If you don't have a 10 tefachim wall underneath. But the courtyard, the wall is broken down b'milua entirely. We say entirely, what we mean is 10 amas. 10 amas is enough to be considered entirely. Where it says, this the means over here is that underneath the water, you still have the remnants of the wall. So the way Tosfos explains Rashi here is that in the courtyard itself, very often I'm able to see that wall. It depends on the tide. It goes down, or the waves. I'm able to see that the remnant of the wall is there. So in the courtyard, I'm allowed to carry. But if I want to take from the courtyard into the house, from the house, I can't see that wall. What's still left. You have to go close to the water to be able to see it. From the house, I can't see it. So what the Gemara really meant is not filling the water. That's our issue. What the Gemara really meant is taking from courtyard to house. The example of that was water, because that's something that you would bring into the house. But really, it means anything from the courtyard into the house. You can't carry from the courtyard into the house, or the house into the courtyard, because that wall is not visible. But in the courtyard itself, where the wall is visible, over there you're allowed to carry. That's one pshat here. That's the way Tosfos explains it. Okay. We're on the top of Yud Beis Amud Beis. Rav Yehuda. Rav Yehuda said, Rav Yehuda, again, is the student of Rav, a student of Shmuel. We had him several times already today. Mavish lein ishtatfu by Shituf Muvais is what we're discussing now. Shitufei Muvais is that if the people from the courtyards, each courtyard itself has houses. Those houses made an Eruv, which means that they put food together, that they're all considered one family. They can each carry in their individual courtyards. If you wanted to go from the courtyard into the Mavai, then all the courtyards that are surrounding that Mavai need to join together also with food. And they put the food in one of the courtyards, and that's what's called Shituf Mivais. It's an Eruv. Eruv Echatzeres is for the courtyard. Shituf Mivais is for the Mavai, but it's basically the same concept. So a Mavai Shlein Ishtatfu Bay. A Mavai where they did not do Shituf. We're going to see if that's really the translation here. But meanwhile, let's just do it like that. Echshir Belechi. And they put up a lechi. If someone throws into it from a Rishus Harabim, that's considered a Rishus HaYachid, and he's going to be chayiv because he threw from a Rishus HaYachid into Rishus Harabim. Chsheira b'kaira, but if they put up a kaira instead of the lechi, you needed a lechi or a kaira. If you put up a kaira, hazayir kloseicha is pater, then it's still exempt. If someone throws from Rishus Harabim into it, it does not become a Rishus HaYachid yet. Maskef lo Rav Sheshes. Rav Sheshes has a question on this on this statement of Rav Yehuda. Time adlein ishtatfu bay. What are you telling me about? They didn't put up the food. What does that have to do with anything? If they did put up food, or if they did put up food, then you'd be chayiv, but then it's putting up a crossbeam is going to turn it into a Rishus HaYachid. If a crossbeam doesn't work, then what does food do? We said that the crossbeam doesn't make it into Rishus HaYachid. Only the lechi does. So if you have food, that's going to help. Does a loaf of bread turn it from a Rosh Yachid into Rosh Hashanah. That's referring to the lechi, to the shita from Muvais. Tanya, but we have a brayso chatzir shel Rabba Muvais sheinu mefulashim, courtyards of public, or a mavoi that's not open on both ends. Bein Eiruvin, bein lo Eiruvin, whether you made the Eruv or not, which means whether you made a shita or not, whether you set up the food, hazayrik l'seichan is chayav. If someone throws from a Rosh Hashanah into those courtyards or into that mavoi, he's chayav. It doesn't matter if there's food or not. Rav Sheshes says you have to say it differently. Amar Rav Yehuda says mavoi shei einay royal l'shitov. A mavi that you can't do shituf on, that you can't put food in to make it permitted. What's that case? It's mefulish. It's open on both ends. It's a mavi that's open on both ends. Then, hechsher b'lechi, if you put up a lechi, then hazarek l'seichi is chayiv. If you throw into it, you're chayiv. Why? Because the lechi makes it into a three-walled area, and three walls is considered a Rosh Hashanah mid'oraisa. But if you use a kaira, is pater because you really only have two walls. Alma, we see from this kasavar that he holds lechi mishum mechitza v'kaira mishum heker. Unbelievable. We had to wait till Daf Yud Beis Amud Beis to get clarity on this. This is what we were thinking about for the last 11 pages. How does this work? Yeah, the Gemara clarifies it. You have to stick it out. So a lechi is considered a wall. A kaira is just a way of recognizing that that's the end. You need three walls. The lechi works even better than the kaira. Lechi makes a fourth wall. So v'chein amar Rabba lechi mishum mechitza v'kaira mishum heker. That's this is how it's learned from Rashi. The Rambam has a different shita. But basically, what comes out is that Rosh Hashanah mid'oraisa is three walls. Why do you put up a lechi a kaira on the other wall? Well, a lechi works one way, a kaira works a different way. But really, mid'oraisa it's three walls, and you can carry over there already. And if you throw from Rosh Hashanah there, it's chayiv. Rava Amar echad zeh v'echad zeh mishum heker. Rava says no, both of them are a heker. Esvi Rabbi Yaakov bar Abba l'Rava zerk l'mavi yesh lechi chayiv ein lechi pater. 1 second. Rava says that it works as a lechi, but if someone throws into a mavi, so that a lechi works as a heker, it doesn't work as a wall. It's not a real wall. A heker just means that it's a rabbinic fixing that tells me where to stop walking, where to stop carrying. But it doesn't actually change the status of the location. It's like, it could have been a stop sign. It's just a street light. It doesn't actually, it's not a partition. So why is there a distinction here if someone throws into it? If it's just like a sign. Achi kamar. Ein tzarech el lechi. It's talking about a mavi that's closed on three sides, and it only needs a lechi. Then hazarek l'seicha chayev. Lechi v'davar acher, we're rewriting that brayso. When it says if it has a lechi, then you chayev, thinking that if it has a lechi, it becomes a Rosh Hashanah. No, Rava says if it only needs a lechi, that means because it has three walls. So then you chayev, even without the lechi, you chayev. But the three walls make you chayev because you took from Rosh Hashanah and you threw it into Rosh Hashanah. But lechi v'davar acher, but if it's a lechi and something else, that means you need a tzuras Pesach. Why? Because it's open on the other end. It's really only two walls. Then you put it. Okay. Eisvei. Where's the question? Yes, sir. Al kenam Rabbi Yehuda mishreish shnei batim shnei tziti rishus rabbi meisalech mikan v'lech mikan ekar mikan v'ekar mikan v'noisim noisim be'emtza amalei im arba rishus rabbi bekach. We see from Rabbi Yehuda. We mentioned this earlier. Rabbi Yehuda says if a person has two houses on either side of Rosh Hashanah, and he makes a bridge across, so then he can carry under it, even though he's carrying in the area of Rosh Hashanah, but it's considered enclosed because of the bridge from one house to another. It says, but even if he doesn't do that, even if he puts up a lechi or a kaira cross beam or a post, that's considered like he closed it off. We're saying, how could it be closed off? Rava says the lechi only works as a hecker. So Hassam Ksav Rabbi Yehuda Shtei Mechitzos there. I see asking from Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda is a different opinion. He holds 2 walls make it into a Rishus HaYachid. We're going with the opinion that 3 walls make it a Rishus HaYachid. Rabbi Yehuda holds the lechi is just there also as a siman, as a heker. Not because you don't need more than 2 walls. Okay. Can I go over 2 minutes over the time, and I'll finish to the end of the page? Okay. The next Gemara is just discussing the shape of the mavai and the chatzar. That's it. Usually we assume that a mavai is narrow. It's a rectangle. It's longer than its width. And the chatzar is a square. That's the assumption. Rav Yehuda says name of Rav, a mavai that's as long as it's wide. It's a square. Eina niter belechi mashu. A lechi doesn't work on it. You turned it into a chatzar. Chatzar has other halachas. You need 2 lechis. Rav Chia Barashi, Rav, mavai she'arket karachvei, eina niter b'kaira b'tefach. They're both saying the same thing. One says that it doesn't work with a lechi, one says it doesn't work with a kaira, which basically means you turned it into a chatzar. Rab Zera, kama mechavnen shmaita the sabi. How clear are the words of these elders? Even since it's a square, so you turned it into a chatzar, and you need a board of 4 or two posts. Rab Zera says, he goes on, he says, Ikashli hakashli. However, if there's a question here, the following is the question. But let it be the lechi. Let the lechi be as if it's a pas, as if it's a board. Gemara right away says, what is he saying? He forgot the important point over there. Reb Zera, when he said that, he forgot the statement of Rabbi Yochanan that says a lechi is not considered a pas. For a chatzar, you need a larger width of a lechi than you need for a mavi. On a mavi, you only need a post. And on a chatzar, you need a pasar ba. Okay. So that's where we're left. Rav Nachman. Naktinan ezem mavi sheniter belechi b'kaira. Rav Nachman, we had the statement before once. Rav Nachman says that we have a tradition that which type of mavi works to have a lechi, just a post or a crossbeam. Kol she'arka yasra al rachbay. Only if it's longer than its width. And it also has courtyards that open up to it. And those courtyards have houses that are inside of it. What type of courtyard doesn't work? Only if it's a lechi or kaira don't work, but you need to have a board of 4 tfachim. That's if it's square. The Gemara says, "Merabasian agulalai." Square, yes. Circle, not. Achi kamar. This is what he means to say. It says even in a courtyard, if the courtyard itself is longer than its width, then that would have a status of a mavi. It's not really courtyard versus mavi here. It's shape, square versus rectangle. And if it's a rectangle, then it only needs a lechi or a kaira. And if not, if it's a square, then it's a chatzar and it needs a pasar ba or 2 posts. The kama, how much longer would the courtyard need to be to become a savar shmuel amemar ad ika pishnayim barachva? So that's only if it's twice as long as its width. Amalei Rab hachi amar chavivi. My uncle said afilu mashu. Chavivi is doidi, which means my uncle. It also could be translated as like Habibi. Right? Doidi is my beloved also. So Habibi means my uncle. My uncle says, Rav Chia, Rav's uncle, from both sides, from his mother and his father, it's a whole discussion in Pesachim, is Rav Chia, who taught the Brises, he says that even if it's a drop longer, it turns it into a mavi and it's not a chatzar.